Hi, welcome to Meet the Candidates Part 2. This is a continuation of our last Meet the Candidates, and today we'll hear from 6 of the 8 candidates. I'm your host, George Callis. Today we'll be hearing from Tim Fulkerson, Mark Godley, Wendy Lazarson, Nirmal Merchant, David Skibbons, and Lori Voss. 2 candidates, Gina Hubble and Stephen Mende, did not respond to requests to participate in this. And now, Meet the Candidates, Part 2. Our first question. Last year's carbon sequestration proposal from Carbon Forest Works was particularly divisive among sea ranchers. How did you view that proposal, and how would you have voted had you been on the board at that time?
Kick us off, Mark.
Sure. And so I actually read the Forest Task Force report a couple years ago. I was completely thrilled by the possibility of carbon sequestration, to the point that my first introduction to Maggie Crosby was I reached out to her and said, where can I find out more about this? And for the first year, I was anticipating with excitement the possibility. Once the proposal came out, I completely changed my tune, because I felt the details of the contract were overly punitive. 125-year commitment, I thought was, although I understand the logic for it, was unnecessary, didn't make sense for us. I thought to take money and allow other people to pollute was against our ethos. And I was quite vocal on the listserv in the transformation I had. I could say a lot more. I ended up being a part of a group that tried to raise awareness of this. And I think the right vote was against. And I personally believe, Tim may be different, but I personally believe we should be protecting the redwoods. And I'm entirely in support of the CC&R amendment to do so.
Thanks. Tim, your response?
Yeah, a few thoughts. Just to extend on Mark's comments, I went out on a walk 3+ years ago with both Jackie and Maggie Crosby. We went up on the north end of the Central Forest and walked through it, and they showed me various areas where they could see evidence where maybe we would want to do some thinning, some others where we didn't. And we did talk about at that point entering some kind of contract for carbon sequestration. And like Mark, once the proposal came out, I mean, just the way in which the proposal came out was striking. It was not something that was being generated by the membership. I don't think it was even on the board schedule. It was something that I think Maggie had been driving primarily, who had had the conversations, or maybe it was she and her husband, David Robertson, who were doing this together. And it felt to me, as a member of the community, presumptuous, and I could share various other feelings that attached to it. But the thing that really, I think, got me was the realization that even if this money was real, which I don't for a minute believe that money was possible, 2 things about it really upset me. The first was that the board has the power to bind a community for 125 years is striking, and particularly for someone like Maggie, who wasn't even voted in by the membership to be able to do that. That in and of itself was wrong. But the second and maybe more important thing is it just seemed immoral to be taking credits for a forest that none of us, no one of us ever wanted to cut down redwoods, and to say that we can then take those and sell them as carbon pollution credits to, some place like the Chevron refinery in Richmond, that just doesn't seem right to me, not in the least. So for all those reasons, I would have very easily, slept well with my no vote.
Thank you.
I do not know the entire history of the carbon sequestration debate because I became a homeowner in end of September of 2021. So I missed kind of all that debate that went on, although, as I think you may know, I have a history with the Sea Ranch since 1981, but there's been a gap. So I do not claim to be an expert in this, and but I know enough to know that I believe that we need to preserve the forest and the air, and we need to work very hard to make sure we're completely educated and we understand the possible avenues, and to do the least amount of damage and the least amount of burden to the environment with an eye toward what we can afford. So as a community, I mean, we are not a big business. And so those are my guiding principles in looking at that issue.
Okay.
And let me first start by saying that the forests are the kind of most prized assets here at the Sea Ranch. They kind of make the natural environment that we have loved and cherished so much and still continue to. And their preservation is central to us continuing to enjoy Sea Ranch the way we have. So commitment to preserving and nurturing our forests is one of the key interests of our members, and will continue to be a key interest that the board will have to address at any point of time. So just want to make sure that I first address that I am committed to preserving and nurturing our forests. That does not, I don't think many Sea Ranchers disagree on that fundamental aspect of it as much as how we go about doing it. And we can all, and this is where I would like to, make sure the membership understand that we do have that common ground, that we all want to save and nurture our forests. We have different ways of approaching it. The science, from what I have read, is kind of divided as to how we go about doing it. There was a time and place where thinning the forests and actively managing the forests was, there is a whole field of science that says that's the best way to do it. There is another side which says the best way to do it is to leave the forests alone, don't touch them. The most mature trees are the ones that sequester most of the carbon, and their continued, the longevity of those trees essentially decelerates the release of carbon into the environment. And that's the approach that we should be taking. So that's there. My key concern with the carbon sequestration is, number one, is around additionality. Agreed that there are a lot of people who have owned forests and have decided to, had no intention to lumber those forests, and have decided to enter the carbon sequestration program to earn the credits and get the funds for managing their forests. There is a moral aspect to it, which does not run very well with me. If we intended to keep our forests as they are, we are not necessarily adding any additional sequestration capacity to the carbon pool that is in the carbon sequestration program. So I don't think we are the right candidates or right audience to be going in there and saying that we are going to be committing to save our forests. We have had full intentions. This community has full intentions of preserving our forests, so there is no reason why we should be receiving money for doing something like that. I also think that it dilutes the carbon pool that is out there, which means that now more credits are available, or credits are available at a cheaper cost to big corporations, which allows them to decelerate or take their own time, if I may, to invest in green technologies, to invest in green practices, so that they start reducing carbon production or addition of carbon to the environment, as opposed to just buying credits from elsewhere. So that is the reason, if it was just about entering the carbon sequestration program or the for the fee that we would get, I would have voted against it as a board member.
Thank you.
That was really interesting, wasn't it? I was really surprised that there was the opposition to it. I thought it was a slam dunk. I mean, it's money for doing nothing other than taking care of our forests, and we needed the money. So I thought it was a simple, straightforward idea. And I know that some of the opposition came from people who had been pro-logging and just didn't want to tie up the forests in case sometime in the future they might want to log. But some of the opposition also came from people that didn't want us in a long-term contractual agreement that might limit other options down the road. I was never convinced by their arguments, but I could tell that they were really sincere in terms of their arguments. So of course I would have voted for it. I mean, it came out of the Forest Task Force, which I was part of founding and was in for as long as it was in business. And I think it was a brilliant move on the part of the Forest Task Force to discover this and to find a group that was willing to work with a stretch of forest as small as ours. And I'm sorry that it got defeated. And I'm a bit confused at how it got defeated. It was when I was watching the board at work on that, it wasn't really clear whether they were just, well, what was clear was that the administration was not really keen about that idea. When Jennifer presented her presentation, she presented all the negative aspects of carbon sequestration without any of the positive aspects. So I was assuming that there was more to this than that I didn't know about, or just that it wasn't anything she wanted to see come to pass, or that she was acting on behalf of the board. I don't know. There's so much I don't know about that, but it was an odd sort of process of defeating that.
Sure. So I'll preface by saying that I have a longer explanation of my view here on my website that I sent out to everybody in an email yesterday. But basically, I think that we are already doing a good thing. I don't think Sea Ranch has any plans to cut down our redwoods. Everyone's pretty much agreed that we like our forest where it is. And that is also serving a greater public good to the state. If the state has set up a program whereby we can get some extra money to do the thing that we were going to do anyway, it's my opinion that we should take the money. You know, we're not an environmental charity. If someone's going to pay us to do this good thing that we were previously doing for free, we should take the money. I absolutely understand that taking the money allows a polluter somewhere to marginally pollute slightly more. But that was going to happen anyway. That's what the program is about. So I feel like participating in the program is better than not participating in the program. In the absence of the offer being on the table, modifying the CCNRs to be absolutely clear that we really don't intend to do any logging is also fine with me, as long as that modification makes it still possible to keep fuel loads low and clear out the understory and all of the things that we need to do to maintain fire safety, because obviously we are a collection of homes. And wildfires are getting, bigger and more frequent.
Thank you. Our community manager has been the subject of opposition from some members, including some board members. What is your evaluation of the community manager? If a vote of confidence were held today regarding the community manager, how would you vote?
Well, I think that I've met Jennifer several times, and within those limited amounts of times have had an opportunity to get to know her and to educate myself about the various views about her performance. And I believe that Jennifer has had a lot of tasks put on her plate that possibly were unfair, that may have caused her to have to put her energies toward work and toward tasks that could have taken her away from other things. For example, when you have many board meetings, and I believe, looking at the number of board meetings that have taken place, that they seem to be either it's an undue number, let me put it that way. Every time there's a meeting, Jennifer has to prepare agendas. Jennifer has a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work for a community manager with each meeting. So I think she's had kind of an unfair shake in that way. I think that for somebody coming from outside of the Sea Ranch and becoming acquainted with how the Sea Ranch differs from perhaps another community that Jennifer might be from, I think takes some time. I think she's got the skill sets, the dedication, the attitude that she wants to succeed and is dedicated to serving the community well. And I think she deserves an opportunity to do that. I would like her to feel that she has some community support and therefore does not necessarily need to rely heavily on lawyers for every decision, which, I totally understand the need to feel that one has validation from an outside source. But I think there's been a lot of turmoil that has made Jennifer's job more difficult than it needs to be. And I'm an employment lawyer, so I understand evaluating performance and what employers need to do to evaluate the performance of their employees. And there are two sides to every story, sometimes more than two. I think everybody deserves a fair opportunity, and everybody deserves some runway to get to a point where they can be at their best. So I have confidence that Jennifer wants to do the right thing and will work hard for our community if given the right support.
Thank you.
To start with, our community manager has had a very challenging plate of issues that she had to deal with when she became the community manager. Essentially heading into COVID, not only did we have our strategic activities and programs on the plate, we also had the challenges that COVID brought to us, and our demographic was rapidly changing, which means we weren't just communicating to our existing community who had been there for long and knew everything and so on. We now had this new set of members who didn't know the context of what happened before and were kind of catching up, and they needed to be educated. So it's a very hard set of challenges to be deal with. I know of CEOs and executives of big corporations who have buckled under that pressure. So I do applaud Jennifer for doing what she did during that time. Having said that, there is one particular area where I think, or I should say two areas where I think things could have been done better. One of them is around communication. I don't think we have been very transparent with our community as to why we are doing what we are doing and how that aligns with our strategic priorities, that the membership aligned with the board and that the board communicated to the community manager. So that's part one. And then also making sure how we are transparent about the priorities. Why are we dealing with this now? Why couldn't this be deferred? Why is another strategic priority? Why it should be deferred? Because we have other things that we needed to take care of. I think the more transparency we could have created, the better it would have been. And the way for doing that would have been over communication during this period of time. You had a captive audience. People were sheltered in place. They were at their computers all day long. The more you could have communicated to them, the more they would have listened to. And would that have calmed our community and reduced the amount of noise we've had? I would still challenge it wouldn't have. I think it would have been lesser than what it has become, but I don't think it would have completely diminished it, just because we were in very anxious times. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give somewhere around 6.5, 7 to our community manager. I would encourage our community to, number one, give, as we are on the recovery, give our community manager an opportunity to now receive this feedback, number one, right? And number two, act on that feedback for some time before we make any rash decisions about it. The community manager is hired by the board. The decision to whether to continue their services or not continue their services is a board decision. As members, we can only inform the board, right? And as members, we owe it not to create an environment that is not conducive for the community manager to perform their functions. So I would encourage the membership to be very thoughtful about the feedback that they give to the board, be very precise about the feedback that they give to the board so that the board can action upon it, communicate it to the community manager, put them on a, be clear about the KPIs by which she will be evaluated, and then manage according to those KPIs. Any other way, and knowing California labor laws and, so on, we don't want to end up in a situation where we now are incurring more legal fees somewhere because of the way we are managing that situation as a community. So that would be just an advice, a PSA, regardless of whether you elect me as a board member or not, just in the interest of the entire community's concerns regarding increasing legal fees. We want to be very careful about how we proceed on that.
Thank you.
Good question, tough question. I recognized, again, once I threw the hat in the ring, that I didn't know the community manager, and I had no business having opinions about her until I actually sat down and talked to her. So we set up a time to get together, and we had a great chat on the picnic table behind the administration building. And she impressed me with being a strong, intelligent woman. And also, I got the sense that she had not been well served by the board in this regard. When she came in, she had a lot of really great ideas about what needed to happen to modernize the association. And I think the board just said, okay, great, fine, go for it, do this, do that. And that resulted in 2 years of 16% dues raise. And never during that period of time did the board consider the needs of the members in terms of being able to contain costs around the dues. They basically just said, great, what's next? Let's go ahead with that. Or I don't know if they did, but it appeared to be that way because she went full bore at what she wanted to do. In the budget workshop, she tells the story of not even having put in for an administrative assistant, and somehow with the board's encouragement ending up with a COO that got a 6-figure salary. And when she was talking to me at the table, she said that there was someone on the ranch that she had been considering, but this other person had better qualifications. That turned out to not be a great decision because people accused her of hiring her friend. I don't know that she hired her friend. She might have hired the best qualified candidate. I don't know. But I do know that it ended up not serving her well. What I talked about with her at the table and what I think she needs to do if she wants to keep her job here at the Sea Ranch is to begin to create a relationship with the membership. Frank was brilliant at that. You know, he would chat about dog poop bags on the side of the trails, you know, but that people knew who he was and sort of on a heart level sort of knew what he was thinking about and what he was caring about and what he was musing about. I know sometimes members just annoyed the heck out of him, but he did a really brilliant PR job at keeping in connection with them. And that is an arena where she's completely neglected up until now. And I think much of the dissatisfaction with her is that people don't know her as a person. They just sort of know her as a factor. and you can't be community manager of this particular community without having a personal relationship with the membership, or at least the appearance of a personal relationship with the membership. So I think she needs to do that in order to survive here. Otherwise, she's shooting herself in her foot. If a vote came up right now, I can tell you right now, that's a ridiculous question. Okay, nothing personal, George, but I haven't worked with her. I mean, I'm not going to judge what she's like as a community manager without knowing what's been going on for the last 2 years and why we've had 47 board meetings and what the heck is going on between the association and the board. Is it the problem of the board? Is it a problem of the association? Is it a problem of both of them? Is it some other factor I don't know about? So I have no idea how I'd vote on that, because what I would do is I would do my very best to get informed in a big hurry the minute I got elected, and sit down again with her and sit down with each individual member of the board to find out what's been going on, so that I can have an informed decision.
Excellent question. I would say that I do not feel like I have enough information to judge the performance of the community manager at this point. And that is itself my primary ding to the performance of the community manager. A lot of people have complained that they don't have, there's not enough transparency, they don't have enough information, and I definitely feel that myself as an owner. I would say that I would like information to be a lot more accessible, and in the presence of greater information, I feel like we would understand more of the context in which the community manager has been operating, and therefore the decisions that have been made would seem less surprising and less arbitrary, and that would make everybody happier. The second part of the question is about a vote of confidence. As again, I said on my website, I would say that the last 2 years have been extremely atypical for anyone trying to get their job done. Certainly, I felt it in my own job. The entire world trying to go to remote work in a huge hurry while dealing with massive disruptions caused by a global once-in-a-century health event. That's not how working life usually goes. It would be a miracle if everyone wasn't stressed out of their minds and not performing at their best. So my inclination is to do what my colleagues have been doing for me, which is to give me the benefit of the doubt, and that I'm not usually going through multiple global crises and a war and climate change and all of that stuff at the same time. So I'm usually a little bit more together. I would maintain a vote of confidence in the community manager for the moment. Certainly give them the benefit of the doubt. And now that things are getting more like a normal life, I would maintain levels of oversight and accountability.
Thank you. Jump in on this one first.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So just to answer that last one, George, I have a huge amount of confidence in Jennifer and her ability to lead this community. I don't think she's been given the chance here. And in particular, having talked to various people, including a couple of current board members, one of the things that I think has been a real challenge is that actually the board has a responsibility to help bring someone on board. And I think the board has failed to really help her be clear and set priorities and to integrate her into this community. So I have a huge amount of trust and faith in Jennifer, and more broadly in the staff at the Sea Ranch, the association, to support us. I just think they need some help to do so. And then actually now bring me back to the first part of the question, which was what?
Oh, the first part of the question.
Vote of confidence?
You've answered it.
Okay.
You evaluated the community manager and you stated your confidence.
Yeah.
I think you answered the question.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, Mark, I'll read the two parts again for you, Mark.
Sure.
What's your evaluation of our community manager? And this hypothetical, if a vote of confidence were held today regarding our community manager, how would you vote?
So I've been managing people for over 30 years now. I have a staff of a couple hundred and direct reports of 6 right now. What I see my role as is understanding what people's strengths are and then figuring out systems to accentuate those strengths, and then where there are areas of improvement, figure out methodologies to address them. The reason I start with that is I see too many people expecting us to have a superwoman as our CM. I think Jennifer has exceptional qualities. I've seen memos she's written to Sonoma County. I've seen her handle herself in very contentious circumstances. I know a lot of staff members are very much in supportive of her. So she has a long list of strengths. What I'm frustrated by is I haven't seen the rest of our organization, in particular the board, complement those strengths and figure out how to support her in areas where she may need help. So that's what I would aspire to do as a board member. As far as vote of confidence, the right answer is I would abstain because I don't know enough about why she is succeeding or why she is failing. But if I was pushed and you said I had to answer one way or the other, I would say a vote of confidence until I'm in a position to make a deeper evaluation.
And
Thank
George,
you
if I
very
might, just one other thought here.
Sure.
I was on the board when Frank announced his retirement, and we set up a committee to evaluate a number of possible candidates to replace him. Jennifer was heads and shoulders above anyone else that we interviewed. And it wasn't just the board who voted for her unanimously. It was the staff and a group of senior staff members who voted unanimously for her, as well as a number of senior members, including Rich Hughes and Maggie Crosby, who also voted unanimously to support her, becoming the new CM. And I say that because now we have a couple of board members who have, openly been attacking her and undermining her, and similarly a few members who have been doing the same. And first of all, I think it's toxic. I don't think that's the right way to work with anyone, frankly. And my real concern is I personally spent probably 100 hours and more going through, along with 4 other, maybe it was 3 other committee members, board members, to review so many resumes and to do this work. And it cost us a fair amount of money in terms of headhunter fees. And if we had to go do this all over again, man, the lost time and effort, the expense, it simply doesn't make sense to me at that level. And I think it would be extraordinarily costly, because if Jennifer leaves, I can only imagine that we would lose some other incredibly experienced members of our staff as well.
Thank you.
Were you recruited, as opposed to someone casually suggesting, to run as a candidate by any members, including current board members? Is there anyone acting in any capacity to advise, consult with you, or otherwise manage your candidacy? Are you allied with any faction or voting bloc on the board?
I can't wait to see everybody's response. And I know every single candidate is going to say, oh, no, I'm not part of any voting bloc. Of course, I'm completely independent. Okay, so was I recruited? No, exactly the opposite, actually. There were people that begged me not to run because they were afraid they'd break up the vote that other people were going to get. So I was anti-recruited. And I took their position seriously, thought about it for a while, but then I realized I think what I can bring to this job is, experience since the 1960s of this community and of this board and of actions that have taken. So I have a historical context that's deeper than just about everybody else on the board. I actually can bring this to the work for the advantage of the community, so that we're not constantly inventing new projects to get involved in and ignoring things that we've had on the table for a while. Like pickleball got defunded in the middle of June of last year in order to put in the facilities so that we can have Zoom meetings in a larger room. And that happened sort of without people even noticing, because there isn't this understanding that the board has been working on things, barrier free trail, the pickleball courts, for a long period of time that we'd like to see come to fruition. So was I recruited? No. What was the middle one?
Is there somebody that's acting, advising?
That's my campaign manager.
Yeah, I call it campaign manager for lack of a better term.
My wife? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, we're not going to count her.
I don't have a campaign manager. I'm like making this stuff up as I go along. I have a lot of experience running for the board, but I do not have a campaign manager. I'd be surprised if anyone actually admits to having a campaign manager, but I have some really great members that love to give me advice. Okay, much of which I don't take, but some of which I do take, that have been really involved in rooting me along on this. I've got folks that have invited me over to their houses to do soirees and meet the folks out in the neighborhood, but I don't have a campaign manager. And am I affiliated with any faction on the board? I don't believe that anyone running for the board is affiliated with any faction on the board. And even the two guys that are running together, I don't believe that if they both got elected to the board, they might be on very opposite ends of a number of different issues. I've talked to Mark, and I actually helped recruit Tim. Me and Marla went over to Tim's house and talked him into running for the board the first time that he ran for the board. He wasn't really interested in doing that, but we said, we really need you on the board because we know you care about the forests. And he ran and successfully was a board member. And I've talked to Mark personally, and I know that Mark and Tim are not like 100% aligned with each other, which is good. I mean, every time you once you sit down in those seats, I don't want to say it's every man for himself, but it's like every human being has to take the best of what they know in order to make the best decisions that they can. I actually don't think now that there are factions on the board. There are people that think alike, but they disagree on other things too. If you watched the board workshop, it wasn't clear that there was a faction. There were some pretty angry board members, but I don't know that I would call them a faction. So I think the whole concept of faction doesn't make a lot of sense.
Thank you.
And I am looking forward to the answers of my fellow candidates.
Okay.
In my own case, the answer is very simple. Nobody recruited me. I'm just a nosy loudmouth who likes to volunteer for running things. Is anyone acting as my campaign manager or advising me? No, or probably I would not be taking the kind of clear and early stances on contentious issues that I have. That doesn't, I certainly don't think the taking clear and early stances is what a professional advisor would have told me to do. And the third question is if I am allied with any particular faction. No, I have not mostly been aware of the various factions apart from by reputation. I have started, now that the campaign is in full swing, getting contacts from particular interest groups. I got an email yesterday from the Renters Coalition, I think they're called. And I have been answering their questions honestly from my existing points of view. I'm not allied with any particular faction.
Very
Oh, wow, how much time do we have, George? So I want to add one piece to my prior answer about the CM and Jennifer's effectiveness, which is, I think the way we start to solve it is to better define roles. What should the board be doing? What should the CM be doing? Where is there a black and white line between those two, and what are our joint ambitions? I think part of the reason we're in a bit of a pickle is I think those things haven't been done well. Now, to this other question. I recruited Tim.
Okay.
But
You didn't. You were like, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and
please do it too.
And it was like, "Please, I need help."
So yeah,
No,
in all
it was
seriousness.
like,
So
yeah.
look, I've only been on the ranch 4 years, but because I've been involved in short-term rentals, because I've been involved in finance committee, because I've been involved in other things, I have tried to learn from the wisdom of people before me. And I've developed some friendships up here. Imagine that. I like being part of the community. So in those various circles, a number of people have casually said to me, Mark, gosh, you'd be great on the board. And I'd be like, really? Do I really want to do that? So after a number of people said that, I finally got to thinking, should I do it or not? I was going to do it last cycle. I wasn't thrilled with the slate of candidates last cycle. And if Rich Hughes had not put himself in the mix, I probably would have done it last cycle. But then if you remember, after the applicants closed, he took himself out 24 hours later. Had he taken himself out before, I would have been in the last cycle. Is anybody managing my campaign? Absolutely not. Matter of fact, a number of people that have asked who had said you should run, they're completely angry about the way I've gone about doing this, which is asking Tim to kind of do this with me. And they've been disappointed with things we put online, et cetera, et cetera. So it's interesting. Even people that have supported me are frustrated that I'm doing this. We're doing this in a way that's a bit unconventional. And we're kind of trying to rebel against that. You know, people have said, can we be your manager? And I've said no. Can we take an ad out in the ICO? We've said, I've said no. So I don't know if I hit all the questions, but
Ally on the board.
Last question: would you consider yourself an ally with any faction or voting bloc on the board, or a voting bloc that might occur in the future?
I don't think so. I will say this: there's 7 board members, right? Of the 7 board members, I have absolutely, I think, fantastic working relationships with 5 of them. 2 of them, despite me reaching out on multiple occasions, have thwarted my efforts to build a relationship. People can draw conclusions from that as they may. I will continue to keep reaching out. Matter of fact, interestingly enough, in the last couple of votes, had I been voting, those people would have found me voting with them, despite them maybe thinking I'm part of some cabal of some sort.
Thank you. Tim, would you care to respond? Would you like me to repeat
No, I'm
the
good.
questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I've got it this time.
Okay, good.
So yeah, I'm running because of the state of our community and in particular, the dysfunction that I perceive is happening on the board right now. Mark, was good enough to step up, and he and I developed, I think, from my perspective, a great working relationship through the short-term rental task force and the process that we led. We tried to be very community-based and really take in a lot of input. And I have so appreciated Mark's perspectives, his sense of humor, his energy, and so many ways in which he contributes, including, like a lot of sort of technical data analytical perspectives that have been so helpful in thinking through lots of, tough issues like the short-term rental task force issues. So when he said, hey, I'm going to do this, it was easy for me to step up and say, man, if you're going to do it, I'll do it together, because I want this. I love this place. And the division and the polarization that exists. And I get it, right? I mean, we've gone through pandemic and there's stress. We've got a new community manager and new board members, right? It's all, that's okay. But I would love to work with someone like Mark because it would be fun again. That's, you know, and we can hopefully serve the community to just start knitting some fabric back together in this place that both of us love. I will say this, I was recruited the first time I ran. David Skibbins recruited me, and he recruited me specifically to protect the forest because he was, you know, I think incredibly concerned is probably the nicest way I can put that, about the Sea Ranch and about the association and the board literally cutting down redwoods for commercial profit. I was vetted then by Rich Hughes and Sandy Hughes. And I think they reached out and, you know, vetted me in that sense through Roland Pesch, through Jackie Boss and Maggie Crosby and David Robertson, I imagine. I don't have the specifics there, but they seem to have a lot of close communications and dialogues. And so Roland Pesch even came in and helped me send out mailers back in 2017 to be a member of the board. None of that's happened here. This is because I care about the ranch and because I love working with Mark. And I think together we could be effective in helping the community work and function better together. I am not sponsored by anyone. We don't have campaign managers. No one has been writing ads on our behalf, you know, that we've sat down. There was a letter that apparently got emailed out yesterday about civility. Neither Mark nor I were aware of that. I didn't even receive it, although I got a copy of it from one of our board members, just wondering if I had even received it. And so, and the answer is no, I wasn't aware. So again, Mark and I, our goal is to create community, right? It's not to sow division. And in that way, my goal as a board member is to be an open, thoughtful member who contributes to the dialogue here, who thinks through the challenges that we all have and the opportunities in that sense to move our community forward, to be more environmentally sensitive, to think about things like climate change, to think about obviously our finances. I really think we need to stay so on forest fire and fire management and fuels management here. We are not exempt because we live on the coast from forest fires. And all you need to do is look at Santa Cruz 2 years ago and look at the Myers fire, the Myers-Grade fire, to know that, I mean, it went all the way down to the ocean, down to the beach, right? So those are my priorities, in addition to creating a community discourse that's a little more civil, at least a little less coarse and a little less polarized, and for sure to support Jennifer and our association because they serve us and they are loyal people, they work hard, and we are so fortunate to have them here as members of our community.
I have not been recruited by anyone, and I threw my head in the ring because I am somebody who, you know, for better or for worse, when I see a need and I think I can help, I jump in, and that is, I saw a need here. As soon as I became a homeowner again, this is my second time being a homeowner here, I saw, oh my gosh, you know, we've got some work to do here. Things have changed since the last time I owned a house here, and I'm a little worried about the community. I've got certain skills. I can help. I am, you know, I've been on boards, I advise boards, I manage people, I am an advocate for a constituency, I communicate for a living. I can use my skills, and that's the only reason that I went on to to become a candidate. Nobody has recruited me, and I know that's a disadvantage because I tell you that when, you know, just being in the forums I've been in and reading all the stuff that's out there on the Serve and the Facebook, everybody else is very well connected. All the other candidates seem to be very well connected to the community. I have a personal, deep connection to the Sea Ranch, but I am not yet, because I've only just come back, I am not yet one of the gang. I am the outsider. I'm the new student in the school, sitting alone at the lunch table. And so I say to people, I may not know every detail of everything that's happened, and I haven't read every note of every board meeting. I can sum it up pretty quickly of looking at what I've seen here. And I can help fix this and continue the good. There's been some good, and I can help with the good, but I can also hope, there's always room for improvement. I think I can help with that. I have a full-time job that happens to be demanding, and giving a busy person, when you have something you want to accomplish, to give it to a busy person. I really do believe that. So I choose how I'm going to spend my time. Am I going to spend endless hours campaigning? No. I want people to understand who I am as a person. I hope I can convey that, and I hope that the community here wants somebody like me to, with my skill sets and my commitment and my heart, to be on the board. I'm not hiring a campaign manager, although, once in a while my daughter helps me with some of the social media minimal posts. But I do not consider myself, and I've kind of thought it was interesting when I've seen various alliances that formed early on, before even all the candidates were known who the candidates are. So I don't know that people have done their homework to figure out who the best candidates are yet before they're choosing who their candidate should be. I leave it to them. But I am not allied, although I think there are many, many excellent candidates, and I'm sure I know I share some positions with many of them. I am not allied with any factions. I'm an individual running for this board, because not for the glory, believe me, but because I really do think I can do some good. And it's a part of volunteerism. It's how I think my volunteer hours can best be spent for this community.
Questions. Okay. So number one, was I actively recruited? No, I don't think anyone actively recruited me as part of my campaign. I just felt it was primarily just based on feedback from members, neighbors, people that I had been working on in committees, that it's a pleasure working with me, that I see things with a calm and level head, that I have the knack of taking a step back, listening to what people have to say, and coming up with win-win situations or solutions that we can act upon. So that's number one. I haven't been actively recruited by anyone. Is anyone acting on my behalf, or is there a campaign manager? I would love a campaign manager. C-Ranch does not make it easy reaching out to all these committee members. The community does not make it easy with all the questions I have received, and the fact that I have to answer to all of them. It's been a delightful learning experience. But no, I do not have a campaign manager. My website has been put together by myself. The emails that I send out are going by my hands on the keyboard to all the membership. The events that I do and I orchestrate are things that I have been putting in myself, including the asks for endorsements. That's just part and parcel of any election campaign. You reach out to influencers within the community, you ask for their support, and you hope that you are able to get your voice out there based on people you know and their experience of working and interacting with you. So that's the part that I have done. There is, to my knowledge, there is nobody in the community that is actively, or I have delegated the responsibility of running my campaign on my behalf. No, I haven't. So that was the second question. And the third question was,
Are you allied with any faction
Allied
or
with
group
any
or
groups.
voting bloc, whatever you want to call it, on the board, within the board?
Got it. Okay. So I have affinities to certain groups just because of what I do in my daily life. So I am a short-term rental owner. And so do I interact with the short-term rental community in C-Ranch? Yes, I do. Do I agree with everything that they say? No. Sometimes I get smacked on my wrist for saying things that they don't agree with, but we are a jolly bunch of people who like hospitality and who like having visitors and are very enterprising and entrepreneurial. So there's that one group that I would say I have affinity towards. Nothing allied with, or I'm not actively negotiating with them about what policies I would support or not support, based just to get their votes, to be very frank. The other group I would say is anyone who feels that we need to be fiscally conservative and we need to run our association with sound financial and moral and social mindset and priorities. Probably that. I think that the board is completely dysfunctional? There are dysfunctions in many boards. Our board is no special than many others. Is our community manager effective? Like I said before, I'm not in the camp of anyone who wants to dissolve the current board or recall the current board. I'm not in the camp with anyone who says that the community manager should be fired or kept. Either, I think those are subjective opinions. I feel that there is a process that needs to be followed for it that benefits our entire community, whichever way we land. And finally, within the board itself, I don't have affinity towards one group or the other, whichever factions that they have called it, one way or the other. I do feel that there are certain times that we take certain projects, give them more prominence and priority over others, which sometimes come across as personal agendas of certain board members, and some people call them activism on the board. There is an element of that on the board, but that can be solved by aligning on strategic priorities and then deciding with the community whether or not something is important or not important.
Thank you.